to kick off. I think anyone that joins us will still get to be a part of what we're doing. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Empire Masterclass as we continue this educational masterclass series. My name's Paul Jantz, and we are here thanks to Professional Partners Education and our fantastic supporters at Hall Chadwick, Profit Master, Global Outsourcing, iKeep, and Lloyd's Auctioneers. Now, as there's a number of firms joining us today, if you are new to what we're doing, let me just explain a little bit about PPE, or what we know as Professional Partners Education. We're an educational platform built for you, built for our accounting community, and we're here to provide all sorts of different layers of learning, from technical, let's call it our lunch and learn workshops. We had one this week, actually, or was it last week? No, I think it was last week, actually, our lunch and learn workshop, which was, we spoke about family law. And we have a lot of firms that invite their team members on there as well. So this whole series, whether it's our masterclass series, our lunch and learns, the Drive Time podcast, or the Empire CEO podcast series, it's all built for you guys. So if there's something you want to know, jump into Google, jump into a YouTube, type in Professional Partners Education and subscribe to our page. And again, you'll see all the technical work as well as the non-technical stuff like these particular masterclasses. So thanks very much for joining me today. Today, we're here to talk about a really interesting topic that's probably, there's going to be stuff that I'm going to be talking about, and certainly I guess we'll talk about as well with regards to data hacks and cyber threats and cyber security. We're going to go through all the sorts of little things that may have affected you only this week. I'm going to tell you about a story that affected me this week. As well as things in the future. So how you can protect only your personal data, your client's data, the firm. And we're going to go into a fair bit of detail about that. Now, this is an interesting one because I suppose our industry, and we love this amazing industry, but this industry is probably, the accounting and financial services in particular, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to these sort of data hacks and cyber threats over the recent years. And probably the most recent one has been the Latitude financial data breach. So we're going to talk about a few numbers. We're going to talk about the threats. We're going to talk about the changes you need to know. We're going to introduce you to a term, if you haven't heard it before, phishing. Phishing with a PH, not an F. So what is it? We're going to talk about business email compromise. And I know Jamie's going to go into a bit of detail about this again, what it is, how do you protect your firm and your data? And we'll talk about a few future threats, more importantly, and what do we need to be aware of. Let me introduce you to our special guest. He is the CEO of Practice Protect and what I'm calling as our cybersecurity expert, Jamie Beresford. How are you, mate? Welcome.
Hey, Paul, great to be here.
It is fantastic to have you here, mate. I know it's been a couple of years since we've had you on live here. And I think, now, where are you coming from now?
I'm coming from northern New South Wales, back in Australia.
Beautiful. Great part of the world there at Byron. So fantastic. Now, I know last time we spoke, you were in Bali running your magnificent business from Bali there. So we had a few challenges there with internet and weather.
Yeah, better now. So it was Bali, then US, and then now I'm back home finally in Australia, settling back into Australian life.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love the new logo there behind you there as well.
Yeah, needs a bit dimming. I'm waiting for the dimmer to come so I can make it a bit darker. It's a bit bright, but thanks.
Fantastic. Now, everything we're going to go through here, I mentioned our supporters before. Now, a bit of a special shout out to Richard Croker as well, a great friend and supporter of Professional Partners Education. So you and I are going to be doing this live. I know we're technically doing this live right now via Zoom, but we're going to be doing this in person as well at the Profit Master Conference in the Philippines later this year. So that's going to be fantastic for anyone that wants to come along to the Philippines and find out a little bit more about how Profit Master Global Outsourcing works. So we're going to be talking about this in more detail. So, mate, before we get into this, I just want you to maybe share a little bit about you, if that's okay. Again, digital security, how did you get into it? You're now the CEO of Practice Protect, a fantastic organization that provides some pretty cool software to accounting firms. Be okay to give us a quick 60 seconds?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you the quick version. So I started as an IT services provider way back about 20 odd years ago. Around about 2013, we decided to move our business to the Philippines. We thought as a way to sort of move forwards, and that threw us into helping accountants with IT and security that were over there in the Philippines. Just through living there, I'd moved there with my family, and just through living there, those connections started working in the BPO industry. And The big challenge that accounting firms had was data security for their clients. When they were looking at offshoring, it was a big challenge, and we built a solution to that challenge. And that was sort of shortly before cybersecurity became a big thing. You know, it's almost the new bank robbery, if you like. And that all happened around about 2017, 2018, when the legislation changed, the notifiable breach legislation came into play. And we said, well, okay, if we're doing data security for offshoring accounting firms, why aren't we doing data security for all accounting firms? And that was where we sort of became Practice Protect, and the rest is history. And since then, our products evolved pretty rapidly. We've called upon our skills as a tech company to expand, you know, because as security's evolved, or as crime has evolved online, it's become a more holistic conversation. It's not just about cloud applications, it's about email device security. And we've sort of moved with those trends, and to here we are today, Paul.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. So, mate, congratulations on everything you've obviously been able to achieve. And it's going to be an exciting time as we sort of share some statistics. And let's probably share this with everyone. And you've probably got more as well. So please feel free to throw this up. And it's been an interesting probably 6 or 12 months, I suppose, given what's been going on. And hard to believe that we're now, you know, sitting at the end of April. But let's go back, you know, 2019, there was a big data breach. Canva, I know Canva, a lot of us use Canva. So 2019, about 137 million users. Then we had the Optus data breach here in Australia, and about 9.8 million customers. Then, of course, Medibank, now Latitude Financial. I suppose the numbers that I saw most recently were there was about 53,000 passports and about 6.1 million pieces of personal data that was stolen. The list goes on, I suppose, from a cyber attacks long and wide. So, mate, to get into this, tell us a little bit about certainly this finance and health industry. Probably they're the two that have been targeted, I suppose, for data breaches. What have you had to do, let's say, to combat some of these? They're quite clever, and I'm going to share a little story before as well. They're starting to get a lot more clever. What have you guys had to do to combat some of these smart people? It's almost like they're ahead of the curve.
Well, for a little while they are, then we catch up pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a game of cat and mouse. I guess, you know, what you mentioned, those breaches, that Optus, Medibank, MyDeal, which was a subsidiary of Woolies, that affected 21.7 million Australians. And it wasn't just email addresses, it was passports, driver's licenses, critical medical records in Medibank. And that was where it all has really hit home, you know, and it's now a public issue, cybercrime. Whereas, you know, before then, we're always sort of sharing examples, sharing case studies, helping, you know, every now and then you'd know somebody that had experienced it themselves or knew someone. It was growing, but this is just blown it out of the water now, where, you know, we're getting our clients are coming to us saying, listen, our clients are asking us about this. Give us all the documentation that we have to make sure that we can demonstrate the compliance we have. But to answer your question, I think the fundamental change is it's termed business email compromise. And essentially what it is, it's a change in what criminals are doing once they get into your system. Okay. Predominantly beforehand, a bot would go into your mailbox and just spray an email to all of your contacts and try and get them to download and install ransomware. And every now and then you'd get a client that would do that, and they'd get their files locked. And it was a very uncomfortable situation, embarrassing situation for an accounting firm, or they'd get their own files locked. And ransomware was a real issue via what we call phishing, those emails that are coercing people into clicking. What's happened now, and it seems to be since COVID, this all started evolving during COVID, is a more premeditated approach, where when a hacker or a criminal gets access to a system, it's an actual human, a premeditated person that is going in and quietly staying in the systems and learning how you communicate, who your what we call payment partners are, so who you have a trusted relationship. You might be involved in an approval process, or you might be the payer, the firm might be the payer, and leveraging that trust. Now they can use AI tools now. You know, when you go back to those spray and pray attacks, you know, generally speaking, 99 times out of 100, they were pretty badly worded, and, you know, Blind Freddy could pick them up. now they're sticking your emails, they're going into your mailbox, getting the way you communicate, pushing it into AI systems, and it's mimicking your conversation style.
Yeah.
And so then they're kind of, warming people up, going through, initiating conversations, and then doing things like, hey, I'm about to jump on a plane, because they can access your calendar. They know when you're about to jump on a plane, and saying, transfer this money. I need it done right now. Make sure it's done. Those sorts of things. So I guess, Paul, the big change is it's serious cash getting lost, the impact. And I'm going to, there's a lot of evidence now around insurance, what the government's doing, what the AFP is doing around that. But long story short, it's not an embarrassing situation for a firm where, oh no, we impacted a client, they were down, a bit untidy, better go, better patch that up. Now it's serious cash getting lost fraudulently.
Yeah, I think that, look, there's elements there where we're all going to slightly be affected. But I suppose going back to some of the comments you just made then, how do they get in?
Yeah, generally through a phishing scam. So someone's inadvertently clicked on something they shouldn't. By the user. At the end of the day, hackers don't hack, they trick. They're tricking people into clicking something, doing something that gets them access to a device. And you've got to remember, people are working from home more now, so their computers, their work computers are sort of blending into their home lives. Other family members, you're doing, you're watching your Netflix on it, you're doing all the personal stuff that you do in your home on a computer, but that's all sort of blending now, and that all increases that risk of inadvertently allowing access to someone.
Yeah, it's a good point. So I mentioned this before, but I got scammed, potentially scammed this week. And it's a funny thing. So to give everyone online as well a bit of an idea of how, I'll call it sophisticated. I had a package delivered, an order through Amazon, got delivered by Australia Post, and it got delivered. And then the next day, I got this text message saying, we were unable to deliver your package. And it came from Australia Post, and it had a link there which had Australia Post. And I thought, but didn't I just receive that? And then I said to myself, oh, look, I do order a number of things on Amazon or Catch of the Day, whatever it may be. And okay, maybe I missed one. So clicked on the link, went in there. It said, we've tried to deliver the package more than once, so twice. Now you need to pay to have it delivered to your address. And I'm thinking, I haven't received one thing. My brain went into that. And I thought, oh, well, I better just do it. And it had the logos there for PayPal, had the logo there for Apple Pay, Google Pay. So I thought, oh, well, okay, I'll just click on one of those because I know it's protected if I do everything through PayPal. When I went to tap the link, it didn't work, or tap the logo, it didn't work. So I thought, so they wanted credit card details. And it's like, interesting. And that's when I stopped and I deleted it and obviously closed the page and all those sorts of things. But they're tracking deliveries.
Yeah. Well, pretty scary stuff. And you're always busy, right? And it's the same as people at their desk. They're flat out thinking about their deadline they've got to meet before they go home for the day.
Yeah.
And it's always when people are the most busiest that something like that pops up and you just go, oh, look, I'll just get that done before I go home. And these sorts of things happening.
Yep, agree. So look, I suppose these threats, I suppose Campbell was pretty big. And the more recent ones of Optus Medibank and then sort of Latitude. Have we just become slack? What's your thoughts on that in terms of, and I know you mentioned busy then, because you're right. Here I am trying to juggle, 3 kids off to footy and trying to, did I receive that? Did I not receive that? Oh, look, I'll just get it delivered. And then bang, suddenly you're handing over details you shouldn't hand over.
I don't think we're getting slack. I think that it's just you're seeing it more now. There's more awareness. This has been growing since 2017 by 35%, almost on the nose annually. I think 2 things. There's just more awareness. You're hearing about it more because it's embarrassing, right? People don't bring it up at barbecues.
True.
If they've inadvertently lost money.
Yes.
Or, I think that, and then also just the fact that they're just getting more sophisticated, right? These are big syndicates. These, when you see that, like sometimes we'll be involved in an aftermath and you'll see the Bitcoin address that they're requesting the ransom go to. And some of the money that is going through these, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. This is huge business. So there's people go where the money is. So they're getting more and more sophisticated, and there's more and more resources at their disposal. Everyone was home during COVID. People had lots of time. They're open to these sorts of offers of being one of those lower level people that would just be the first responder to a breached mailbox. And it's a thing. So these syndicates, there's multiple layers down. They're not the ones themselves going through mailboxes. And, the first responder, he just checks out whose mailbox it is. And, if it's a 12-year-old's mail, or, well, probably too young to have email most of the time. But if it's a child, someone with no significance, they're just going to sort of push it aside. The first thing they want to know is, does this person have payment partners or trusted relationships that we can leverage? And then it goes up the chain. And, it's like a sales funnel, really, until it's getting to the really smart guys that initiate the conversation.
Yes. And I think certainly even in the media more recently, there's been a lot of talk about these, you're right, the conglomerates, these massive businesses that are out there. I think the media source that I saw last week was saying they're based in India, and the ability to have those resources to be able to tap into us is quite incredible. And at 35% since 2017, that is quite incredible. So you're right. I think, like even this morning, I saw one this morning on, shout out to Teddy if he's online, from Max Growth in Sydney. So I know Teddy posted something today about the Commonwealth Bank and how they have, let me just quickly read it. It was something that, so it says here, millions of Commonwealth Bank customers warned, message us immediately. So it's interesting that you've been attempted a payment of $750 to Target Limited, Target the store. So there's obviously some key things in there that they're targeting some Commonwealth Bank, and Commonwealth Bank now trying to make their customers aware that if you're receiving this, just be very careful.
What that coincides with is Commonwealth Bank have just deemed a fraudulent transaction. So if you're tricked into transferring funds to them, that's an authorized transaction, and that's in their terms and conditions. Yeah. If someone uses your credit card, the bank will cover that. Yes. Eventually, when you go through the process, if you've been tricked into transferring funds inadvertently, bank's not going to get involved. It's you did it, your problem.
You got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
So how do you, what's the mitigation process? And even again, it happened yesterday for me as well. So, and I'm really considering, we've been doing this today and we've been planning it out for a few weeks now. A guy wants me to pay for something. He doesn't want cash. Usually it's cash on delivery. He wants me to pay via PayPal. And I'm quite aware of this, I suppose. So I don't really want to do it, but I know my son wants it. So how diligent do we need to be to make sure that that is the right link before we click on it?
You've got to do a second factor, like take it offline. Is to answer the question. If someone's asking you to transfer funds, call them. Hey, is this you? I'm about to pay this invoice. Obviously, depending how much it is. If it's $50, you're not going to do it every time. You can't afford that time. But you just got to be diligent. And if you get that inclination, pick up the phone, take it offline, because I was, back in the day, we would have said, just make sure there's a second factor. If you're getting that, send them an SMS. But these days, someone could have breached a device that has iMessage attached to it. So they're receiving those text messages. So, they're getting access to multiple factors, but generally a phone call. If you tell me calling, and I'm sure that, there's AI coming that's imitating voices and all that sort of stuff. So nothing's 100%, but if you're about to transfer a ton of cash, give them a call.
Yes.
Because it's not just the coercing by email, you're getting modified bank details as well. So what they'll do, they'll actually set a rule in Outlook to hold an email when it's sent, grab the attachment, modify the PDF, modify the bank details, let it go. So it looks legit. So you're just paying an invoice and the bank details have changed, and away it goes. But yeah, you got to call.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, if anyone online has had an experience like that they'd like to share, please do so. Drop it into the Q&A. We will have time for questions as well. So please, anything you want to share or ask, please let us know. Because I know there was an accounting firm here as well in Melbourne that this happened to. where, and again, maybe 2 or 3 years ago that this happened, but I was quite taken back by the way they did it. They learned the language of, and it was, yeah, they just got an email saying, I need to transfer X amount out of my self-managed super fund to this particular account, and I've changed bank details. Here is the new bank details. So most of us go, I know I would. You'd look at it and you'd go, oh, okay, great. I've got that in writing. So that's from Jamie.
Want to get it done.
I'll get it done. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was something at the back of the mind. I still remember the firm telling me, she said, there was something at the back of my mind. I've just gone, I'm just going to give them a call just to find out. I said, oh, Jamie, did you just send me an email with regards to, they've gone, no. And that was the light bulb moment of, holy shit, you know, these sorts of things are, and that was probably 2-3 years ago, to be fair. So yeah. I think you're right. The ability to train our team members as well for those sorts of things. When you're right, we're rushed. We've got to hit deadlines. We've got certain things. We've got to leave the office. But hang on, this client wants this transferred. We've got to do it today before 5 o'clock.
Exactly. And psychologically, what we learn when we have these instances, one of the first things people tell us is, oh, I just hate paying the bills. You know, it's boring and it's painful. So you just want to get it done. Because it's not fun, right? As when you're running a business, looking at how much money you're spending is not a fun task. So you rush it. And that compounds the issue.
Yeah, so true. So true. And we know that most of us are time poor. So that just becomes a part of our normal activity every day.
Yeah.
So, mate, is there anything else that we could do to mitigate risks? Let's talk, like we've spoken about a couple of personal things.
Make access easy. Yeah, there is a couple of things, Paul. So it's a couple of, make access easy. It's about access. A lot of people think about data storage. You know, their mind goes, well, I think about cybersecurity, like, oh, where's my data stored? And this was when cloud first started coming into play, it was all about, the cloud, the data's online. It's not about storage, it's about access. People don't trick firewalls. They trick end users that have legitimate access to the data store. So the way to secure data is to make it easy to access. Consolidate all of your logins so there's a single protected identity that team members have, whether it's across all of your cloud applications, your email system, your desktop computers, and then all of your utilities. So all of your separate logins that people need to use. Otherwise, they're going to take matters into their own hands. They're going to save it in web browsers. They're going to write it on sticky notes. They're going to keep an Excel spreadsheet to manage all of those passwords. So making it easy for people makes the firm more secure. So you're talking about having one, like a one central password and then another layer underneath that? Central password protected by multi-factor and a whole lot of, limiting to IP addresses. If it's it's a remote team member.
Yes. Generally
speaking, you might not be comfortable with that remote team member operating outside of, say, a BPO like Profit Masters facility. So you lock that access to that specific IP address.
And is that something to be, and you're right, you mentioned before in terms of people working from home now, and we're on our home Wi-Fi's as an example, as opposed to an office Wi-Fi. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, it does. And most definitely. Sometimes people have dynamic IP addresses at home usually, so you can't lock them by IP, but what you can do is lock them by machine. So if it's a company provided computer, yes, lock their access to that physical piece of hardware, because you can control that. You can install your security agent on that device. You can protect the mail platform on that. You can access. The firm owns that device. Yep. You don't want people logging in on their 16-year-old nephew's computer because they can't, because it's got a bigger screen or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So locking remote workers to a specific device is a big one. But obviously you need all of those logins to go through that. Now, the other thing besides its access, not storage, is the devil's in the email. This is all about email. When people I think it's because the cloud has become such a phenomenon with Australian accountants. Everybody thinks about their cloud apps because that's where the client data is stored. Accounting firms, bookkeeping firms are all about their client, all about protecting their client data. It's actually email that gets exploited, because when you get into someone's mailbox, you can impersonate them. You can reset passwords to other applications. You learn a lot reading through someone's sent items. You got access to their contacts. You got access to their calendar. You know where they are. You got everything. Devil's in the email.
So how do we protect that? How do we protect email?
Yep. Once again, consolidating access to it. So it's just another application that comes through that single identity, making sure you've got multi-factor and a whole lot of it's called conditional access. So locking people to specific locations or specific devices and having some tracking involved. So, if there's a brute force attempt at that mail, because everyone's on Office 365 or G Suite these days, those systems get smashed with brute force attempts, which is just bots trying to crack passwords. If you're seeing you need a notification system where if somebody's having a crack at that, you're going to get a notification that there's been, 20 bad password attempts to this specific user's mailbox today, and having that real-time access.
Right. So, and I know it's again, some of the things, and it's sort of fed directly into these hackers' hands, really, because one of the things, and I'll speak from personal experience, I hate changing passwords. I hate remembering passwords. I hate, there's so many aspects to that, but you've got to do it, don't you? You've got to just have those different layers.
Yeah, well, you've got to make it, make it easy. Have that single point of access. So you've got one password to manage, and all of the other passwords are secured in the back end. They're not visible to the user. So all the user has to worry about is one.
It's a good point.
So, I'll put a bit of a caveat in because some of this might sound overwhelming, and some of it is but if you look at it from an accounting and bookkeeping firm's perspective, they've moved faster to cloud than any other professional services industry. And that's dramatically changed the nature of what IT is. Essentially they've left the IT guy behind. Okay, the tradition, and we've moved on. We used to be that guy back before 2013. And most accounting firms, they go to the industry. They're about, when you talk about tech, they want to talk about workflow. They want to talk about automation. They want to talk about how all their apps can interact with each other really well to save them time when they're doing repetitive compliance-related tasks. That means, there is this sort of almost circling back now. Not circling back. Security is the one thing, okay? Because it's the one thing that needs to be looked at. Really, there's no such thing as IT service anymore, managed services. There's just a security aspect that needs to be considered.
Okay, and I think what I'm going to do to help everyone online as well, we're going to talk about very shortly about, let's call it a framework as well. So we're going to, ideally, I'm going to sort of tap into Jamie's brains about how we can, about how you can put together a bit of a framework for this. So as a business, a bit of a strategy about all the little things that you can start doing, and even chatting to team members about this as well. Mate, a couple of terms, if you don't mind. I know we spoke about a couple of them, but let's delve a little bit deeper again into this. So you spoke about the term phishing with a PH. So tell us about that. You're just okay to expand a little bit more on what that means and how we don't fall into that trap?
Yep. Don't trust any email that's not from someone you know. And even if it is, and they're asking you to enter credentials in somewhere or click on something, just be really careful. Slow down I could bundle it up and slow down.
Yes. Okay.
Hover your mouse over it before you click it. If it looks weird, the URL looks strange, the email, check the actual email address it's coming from.
I think that's
slow down.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, isn't it? Because you're right. Once you look at it, might come up with Paul Jantz, but when you click on it or you hover your mouse over it and it comes up with 0004366 and all these letters, you go, hang on a minute, that's not Paul.Jantz at Hall Chadwick. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? That could take only 2 seconds to look at.
And yeah, but even if it is, sometimes your mailbox could have been breached as Paul Jantz, and they're just trying to propagate the infection. So that's where it's about, why is Paul asking me to click here to collect the prize or something along those lines. But now it'd be Paul, with business email compromise. And look, where it's all going now. The AFP have just built a specific task force at the end of last year, specific task force for BEC. They've had a cyber security task force for years, but this is the first time a specific type. So that gives you an idea of where this is going, because now it'll be Paul Jantz emailing you to say, hey, jump on the next webinar. It's a paid one this time, or I don't know, think of something.
Yeah.
Some way that a trusted person would pay you money.
Yes.
So yeah, either an invoice or something coming from you, and that's where it's coming in, like fraudulent payments.
Good point. So to everybody listening to this, if you do receive an email from me asking for money, it's not me. Okay. This is all free to you guys. So it's an interesting one. So that's where your business, and you mentioned BEC before, so business email compromise. So they've set up a task force for that. That's how serious this is.
Specific task force, because the payload, that the impact is so high. And they've just increased, legislation's just changed where the maximum penalty is now 50 mil. And the OAICD has more sweeping powers to investigate what companies, this has all come into play since last year, since the breaches.
Right.
And a company, and it's happening, right? Because over the years, like the notifiable breach legislation has been in place for a long time now, 2017, 2018. They haven't really smashed a lot of people in the small business arena, but it's starting to happen now. There's a financial services firm called RI Financial. I hate to pick on them, but it's a good one if you want to Google how that played out. But they just got a fine for $750K for the way they were managing clients' data. So it's public sentiment's changing.
Yeah.
People are pissed off at Medibank, Optus, and now it's seen as negligence now. The general public, clients, the business community think, aware, and that data hygiene, the way you're managing credentials, they're watching.
Did any of the big brands, those big ones that we just mentioned there, did any of them pay the ransom?
Medibank didn't. No, Optus did.
Did they?
Yeah.
And what? Well, I don't know if it's been released, because you sort of, it's a funny
it's all
thing.
Online.
Whether it was, did that mean they paid and then they don't release the data, or it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they didn't. I've seen a lot of these, and the first step is pay us this a bit. Everything will be locked. We'll have a client. Everything will be locked. No one will be able to log in.
Yeah.
There's a chat box there that says, "Hey, pay us X," and it's usually a huge amount of money. And then you go back and go, "No, how about $5,000 or whatever?" To try and get the client out of trouble. And they'll come back and go, "Well, here's the financials. This client can afford more than that." They've already done their homework. They know, and they've done their research. Then it just sort of goes on from there.
Yeah. Now we spoke about, I'll just go into a couple of things before we go into top 5 threats moving forward as well. So you spoke about AI before, and it is interesting that now the artificial intelligence is picking up our style of, call it, our writing skills. And I think even this week there was some AI that came out that was matching music I saw something online about that as well, about how someone's taking action about someone because the AI is now producing music to what these artists are producing, which is interesting. So, and I know, something like a ChatGPT is an example with, I think it was founded by Elon Musk as well, but is that a problem or a part of a solution, do you think?
It is, when you think about it, because you can feed a few seconds of someone's voice, and then you can imitate that voice. And there's apps out there doing it. So I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen that type of breach, but I did, before I was like, give them a call.
Yes.
Where's that going to go?
That's exactly right.
And I think, I don't want to get too far off topic, but with the AI piece, I think there's going to be so much harder to trust online now that there's just going to be no trust. And that's scary. If you go back 10 years and you think when we used to read the newspaper, or there were journalists, right? And you had a fair amount generally speaking, you had a fair amount of trust in what you were reading. Nowadays, it's all blog articles, it's SEO content designed to drive you to buy the product that the article's written. You don't trust it. The AI piece, this is next level to that loss of trust. It's going to be an interesting journey when we get to a point where no one trusts anything. Then what do we do?
Well, that's exactly right. Considering we've all been pushed this way as well with the use of every device that we've got now. And like you mentioned before, COVID has probably forced us to, and employers in particular, to allow employees to work from home with that 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever it may be, that flexibility that people are looking for. So you're right. It's an interesting space to watch, isn't it?
And less physical interaction, right? Less kind of, we're all getting used to communicating more online and trusting people online and building working relationships through a chatbot, whereas we used to physically see people every day, and that's getting exploited as well.
So true. It's so true. Mate, just one off track a little bit, but it's still, I'll go into problem or solution, probably more from a personal point of view. I know I don't have it. I don't have TikTok, but I know, again, it's been in the media with regards to TikTok data, going to a Chinese a communist party. What's your personal thoughts on that? Well, I know there's governments around the world that are banning it.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'd be very wary, but I think, I do worry about the whole China bashing piece online, and how we're getting sort of, we're getting conditioned, I think, by our government there. Do you trust Facebook? Do you trust the Americans anymore, or just because they're American? Big companies with your data. I think it's broader than, okay, this happens to be China. This is how do we trust? Who do we trust online, and what are our expectations on how they're going to manage our data?
Yeah, but I know there's even things like Facebook, of course, there's been a lot of, I don't know, it seems like almost every second day someone has been hacked on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's true, and I'm sure it's impacted all of us at some point in time. I suppose it just depends on the level of impact. Sort of losing your Facebook account and having to reload a new one and that's not that difficult, but when it has a financial impact, it's massive, obviously.
That's the big one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah.
I was taught. No, you go.
Yeah, look, I was taught, and on that, because all these indicators, right? The task force, the fines going up to 50 mil, SMB firms getting fined. These are all signs that this is a thing, right? And another thing is, I was talking to Accountancy Insurance yesterday, the guys there, and they've excluded social engineering and fraud now from their standard cyber policy. If you want, which is social engineering is technically what business email compromise is. You have to pay more, you have to pay a higher premium, and there's a higher excess. There's a 10 grand excess. Yeah. So that's all signs, right, that it's happening.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And increasing the requirements that you need to have in place in order for your policy to be validated. So when you sign up for cyber insurance, you got to tell them what's in place. Are we doing it? There's a whole lot of requirements. People just go tick, 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 tick. You get a breach, they'll check now and see, and you have to present evidence that those things are in place.
So a good point as a part of when we get to our framework, that's something that we can definitely have in there in terms of a starting point with our insurance policies to check.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Yeah, it's a big one.
Well, more than likely the firms have probably already been communicated if it's through Accountancy Insurance. There's not many other providers out there, is there?
No, there's a couple, but Accountancy Insurance, the one we work with, yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I agree. Mate, let's do a quick little fire in terms of the top 5 threats. So these are just terms which, again, some of us may be aware of, some of us may be not aware of, but it also can form as a part of our, let's call it our cybersecurity framework of policies as well, framework and policies. What's the holistic approach?
Yep, sure. So taking a broader approach now, it's not just about cloud apps. From a tech perspective, devices, email, and your cloud applications, the 3 of those things, having a policy for those, having a security agent on your devices that's managed, having some protection around your email delivery so that those phishing emails aren't getting through and there's someone monitoring those and managing those as new threats come out, and then also having that single sign-on environment around everything. They're the 3 tech things to do.
So as a security agent, when you say security agent, just to dumb it down for me, what do you mean by that?
So antivirus is a part of what it does. It also takes care of there's a lot more now around cybercrime. So they call it 0-day threats. where when something real time's happening, they're onto it and they're actually able to compartmentalize a specific app. So if somebody goes and clicks something and it launches an application that's going to install some spyware, it'll actually put that particular app in a virtual container on your computer, so it can't get outside of that container.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's protecting you from your phishing scams, and then they all work together, because protecting your email prevents most of those emails from, and will analyze the links in real time. But if something gets through, because it happens so quickly, right? They'll release something and it'll be a matter of minutes. They'll infect people, and then they write something else. Gets through, then you've got that container. So when someone executes that application on your computer that's nefarious, it's happening in a virtual container on your computer, and it's not able to spider out to the network and lock files and get to other people.
So you can contain it effectively.
Correct, yeah.
Yep. So control access was the next one.
Yeah, and access. Yeah, making it easy for people to log in with one single login, single sign-on to everything.
Okay, single sign-in, and is that something that let's say you're a small individual, small firm? Is that something you guys provide?
It is, yeah. Practice Protect provides that, yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yep.
Email protection. We've just spoken about that, but that should be a part of our framework as well.
Yeah, that's most definitely. And then you've got your compliance aspects, making sure you do have an information security policy in place, a privacy policy with your clients, so you're able to limit your liability, and you're setting the expectations on how you're managing your clients' data. IT and internet usage policy with team members. So, there's a whole bunch of rules that you would assume that people would follow, but people don't, because they just want to get their work done. And you may not be comfortable with somebody using their 16-year-old nephew's computer to access your client data and do their work. But is that in a policy? Do you have an IT and internet usage policy with your team members? Because if you don't, then that's what's going to be called into play in the event that you have a breach, because you haven't done your due diligence.
So this is
same as with third parties. People have contractors accessing systems, consultants, third parties that are, an agreement with them. So that, because by default, the data owner, client, if you've got your client's data and a third party comes in and does something silly or nefarious, you're on the line.
So a third party like an IT company, or
could be an IT company, could be a consultant, could be a contractor that's coming in and accessing your systems, a bookkeep, whatever that particular contractor is that accesses your systems. You may be giving someone an email address in your company so that they can, they're a third party that's working on your behalf. All these sorts of things come into play.
Yeah, could be as simple as, we now, our communications, as you mentioned before, our communications are going through, like everyone that found out about this was, obviously they would have been sent an EDM. That EDM could be, obviously you're using either a Vision 6 or you're using a HubSpot or whatever it may be. So then you've got a marketing company that maybe you're outsourcing that to actually get done for you.
Yeah.
There's a classic example of a third party.
There's heaps of those. Yeah. MailChimp's had some rippers over the years where you've got a third party. So they'll give an account to their marketing team. The marketing team will have a shared account, it'll be name of marketing company at accountantsdomain.com. And they'll share that, all the marketing guys in that third party, they'll share those credentials. So there's a bunch of people that have got this, and that just increases the risk of those credentials getting out. Next thing you know, someone's blasting emails to all of your clients via your MailChimp database.
Yeah, look, I think, and it's an interesting one, because talking from experience, that sometimes comes into play, because we'll set up a marketing at xyz.com.au because we don't want to pay for the 5 users as an example. But that one marketing log-on gets used by 5 different people with other people. You just can't control that, can you?
You can. So you can still share an account. You just don't want to be giving everyone the password. You want to have that in a single sign-on environment. Right. So you're able to provide access without providing a password. True.
Because that's where, if it's single password, that's where that extra layer of
like
security comes into play. Yeah.
Yep. Single page of of everything that you want to give access to that particular person, that they sign in through one single gateway.
Yep. Okay. We spoke about device protection, but do you want to expand on that even a little bit more?
Device protection is running the right security agent that is managed. Okay? All this stuff happens so fast and it's evolving every day. You've got to have someone that is watching that, updating that, keeping an eye on that. Like it's called a SOC these days, a security operations center that's watching any activity on your device that's nefarious, so you're getting told about it.
So who would typically do that for a 2-partner firm with 10 people?
Well, I don't Practice Protect. We'll do that for you. We're specific for data security for accountants, and look, there's other options, but we're specific to the accounting industry. Yeah, we know the apps.
I did open it for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm hesitant, but yeah, that's what we do, and we've expanded. Like, we started the access component. When the cloud was all about cloud, we're all moving to cloud, or we're all using the Philippines. And when that first wave of outsourcing first started, was all about the cloud ecosystem. The battlegrounds evolved since then. It's now devices, email as well, because in that period of time, a lot of firms have moved away from their IT guy. They're not paying $150 a user a month anymore because they don't need to. They don't need a managed services contract. So yeah, there's been a hole that we've plugged there.
Yeah, good, brilliant. So in terms of, let's say, formulating that cybersecurity framework and policies, we mentioned a holistic approach. We mentioned control access, email protection, device protection, and then probably policy documents. I was about to say policy documents, but that doesn't work. Policy documents. Where's the starting point, I suppose, for firms sitting there listening to this saying, right, is it a matter of just setting up this framework myself, and where do I start pulling out all that stuff from?
Yeah, the fifth one, cybersecurity training for your team, because you've got to have, if in the event you get breached, that's one of the things they're going to ask, and that's what you'll sign when you sign off on your cyber insurance. You got to do it. So that's the fifth. That's the 5. Where to start? Practice Protect will help. We've built, this is exactly what we do. Let's not beat around the bush. It is what Practice Protect does. We do an accounting security consultation where we'll do a consultation with a firm, and we'll have a look at what applications they're using, where their team members are, how they're accessing data, and provide a whole lot of information about what they can do, and obviously a presentation of our product as well.
Beautiful. And I think, having seen one of the, g'day Albert. Albert's got a couple of questions there, which is great. And the first question was, what services can Jamie provide? So you've probably delved a little bit into that, and I know that that's not what this is about, but it was about sharing all the things that we currently know, more importantly, all the things that we don't know that are coming up that you need to be aware of. So hopefully that provided you with a bit of an outline, everyone online, to what Jamie's firm at Practice Protect can actually do for you. Another question from Albert here was cybersecurity audit, review of security protocols, and review of offshore with working from home security. They're all questions, I suppose. Are they things that you can do?
Is that the question? Yeah.
Question, yeah.
Yeah. So that IT and internet usage policy and the agreement that you're signing with your clients, your engagement letter, that's got to cover that sort of stuff. You just got to make sure you review those and have those included in that engagement letter with your clients.
With your clients. Yeah. That's just as important nowadays, isn't it? So guys, yeah, look, anyone that's online, throw us any questions that you may have. Again, it can be a complex type of subject to talk about. So if there is anything that you want to throw in there while Jamie's online and you've got him for another 8 minutes or so, please throw it at us. Okay, let me go back to, so, mate, tell us about, okay, we've spoken a little bit about Practice Protect. So what's the future direction for Practice Protect? And I suppose you'd have existing firms on here that are using you. You've got some potential new customers that are using you, and the major benefits of using a company like Practice Protect.
Yeah, well, right now it's just about keeping up with the game of cat and mouse. AI is just exploding things, and we're learning very quickly. Obviously, we have 22,000 accountants using our platform now. So we're at the coalface every day, and we're just using that experience to learn, keeping an eye on what's going on and making sure our services keep up with that, because it's moving so fast.
Yeah.
Like I say, this 35% increase in breaches has been going on every year, but this fundamental change, this from spray and pray to methodical, premeditated, sinister approach, that's really changing things. And when you throw AI on top of that, there's a lot to keep up with, and there's a lot to stay in front of.
So how do firms continue to stay on top of that? Is there constant things that you guys release to stay on top of that, or is it they need to be a Practice Protect customer?
There is, yeah. We continually evolving, and probably one of the things, I will hand on heart say, probably one of the things we haven't been really good at is communicating the changes in our product as it is evolving. If you come on board now, you're going to get a demo of everything that we've talked about today. But we've got a lot of very loyal clients that came on board in 2017, 18, 19, 20. And we're in the process now of building out that client success function that's going back and helping them understand what they have at their disposal. It's something, we can't, like I say, we do come from a tech background, and we've been really good at support, haven't been as good traditionally at proactively helping our clients understand where the product's going and where cybercrime's going, besides doing these sorts of things.
Yes.
And that's something we're working pretty hard at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant. And I suppose these are the sorts of things that, I suppose, from our point of view, and call it that masterclass, that educational side to all of you guys that are listening to this, where it's moving at a fast, rapid rate. So I suppose we'd love to bring you the information on this all the time, but I suppose staying in contact with companies like Practice Protect and making sure you've got your framework set up, your training. And if that's going to be forced upon with insurance companies now as well, you're going to have to do it. So it's another system and process and training to get your people involved with, which is going to have to be, fair to say, every 6 months, every 12 months, continually do it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to, make sure you're ticking those boxes, because you're never going to be able to 100%. No one can say, even us, right? We can't 100% hand on heart say we will never have any of our clients breached. Yeah. But we can have all of the compliance measures in place and all of the security measures in place to make sure that we minimize that as much as possible. So in the event that it happens, you can say, hey, this is what, we did the best, use the best tools available at the time to protect our clients' data.
Yeah, good. And I look, to be fair as well, you'd like to think that companies like Optus and Medibank have got pretty good systems in place.
Yeah, well, you would, yeah, but lots of team members. It comes down to an employee clicking something, and then systems getting exploited.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you can, and I think that's a good point, and we haven't mentioned right now, really, cybersecurity is a human issue. It's like I say that, they go after the user. Hackers don't hack, they trick. And it's as much about the HR aspect of it as it is a tech one, because we can lock down the tech as much as we like, but if people are clicking on things or if people are typing passwords where they shouldn't, there's nothing you can do. So it is about that education, as you've mentioned.
Such an important point, isn't it? So it's about being tricked, and it's a human issue, not a tech issue. I love that. And it's something that everyone that's online should be able to use that and say, right, how do we make this an educational process? Because it's the individual that's going to be tricked. So just to
the end point,
what Jamie just said then. Mate, we've got about 5 minutes left. So again, questions, if you've got any, throw them into the chat bar. Hopefully, Albert, hopefully you're back. I saw that there was something about you've lost some sound there. So hopefully nobody else has lost sound. I've got a question here from Mary Joy Fiesta, and that is, how should companies control access privileges to mitigate the possibility of a database breach?
From a file permission, I'm assuming that's from a file permissions perspective. Actually having multiple levels of permissions, a lot of firms, security, it gets annoying when you have to manage multiple access levels to data. And a lot of firms, what they'll do is they'll just give access to everything to everyone, just to make it simple and easy to get the job done. And then the firm owner will have his own little secret stash off to the side. Having different levels of permissions within the firm, just defining who actually needs access to what data, just reduces that element of risk where you have this everything to everyone, and then you invite someone into that, so a third party, and they've got access to everything as well. And that's where you tend to, it's a need to access type arrangement. Hopefully
I do like that the different levels is actually quite clever, because not everyone needs access to everything.
No, that's right. That's right. But it's easy, right? And, it's just, and often on these file storage apps like Dropbox, someone just cranks up Dropbox and it evolves. Or, even some of the industry ones, FYI docs, suite files, file storage can turn into a bird's nest pretty quickly if it's not managed, and that increases risk as well of files being accessed. Hey, there's another one on that is also, because these apps like your Dropboxes, if you want to share a file with someone, because you don't want to be emailing attachments these days that can contain sensitive data. And another way around that is to right click, share, copy the link, paste the link in an email and send it to someone, right? You can set up SharePoint, FYI docs, all of the Dropbox, these applications to have some conditional access around that. So that link's going to disappear after 14 days. Massive one, right? Really simple. And then it's no problem, no skin off anyone's nose. There's other measures, but making sure that disappears, because someone gets into your mailbox in 2 years' time.
Yes.
That link's still sitting there.
Yeah. And that was probably one of the issues if you think about with Latitude. They had data back from 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good one, Mary Jo. It's an issue, something we hadn't covered and something we probably should have earlier on. Those file storage apps, so convenient and easy to use, but just so easy to share a file forever.
So would that just be in your settings? You just need to go into settings and
go into your settings and you'll see the sharing, the permissions. So we'll have in our environment, and we use Microsoft SharePoint, we actually have it's just not accessible to anyone outside the company, and if it is, you have to add them, and it's a bit cumbersome, but we're a security company, so we take those precautions. So if I want to share a file with you, for instance, Paul, I have to get your email address, create an account for you specifically. You don't have access to our systems, you have access to that one file, and then you can access that through, you have to log in, you have to authenticate to access those files in our systems. Now that slows people down, and I understand that we need to get things done quickly and we're all busy, but that disappearing link after 14 days or 7 days, whatever you can tolerate, is absolutely critical, because it doesn't slow anyone down and it solves 95% of the problem.
I would agree. That's very clever, actually. I'll look into that.
Well, thanks, Mary Jo. That was a good one.
Brilliant. Any other questions?
Mary Joy.
Mary Joy, yeah. Mate, just in wrapping up, anything you'd like to final words as a part of the wrapping up process?
Oh, well, look, I guess thanks to you, Paul. This is, I'm sitting here sort of sharing all the things we do every day, or asking the questions, and you've put us in front of such a great audience. So I just wanted to thank you and thank the audience, and yeah, just stay diligent, everyone, and look forward to. Things are changing quickly, not just in cybersecurity, but keep on the front. All this change, there's an opportunity there. It's a risk and an opportunity at the same time with where AI is going. Yes. Stay on the front of that, and we'll all have jobs and businesses in 5 years' time.
So true. Mate, thank you. Look, it's always great chatting to you. Appreciate, obviously, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, providing all of our listeners with some really, really important information, how they can run their business better and more secure moving forward. And I think that's what this is all about. So thank you, a massive thank you. To all of you that have joined us, thank you very much. Again, a big, massive thank you. We're lucky enough to be able to share this sort of information with you and with your team members as well. I know I had a message just before from Albert saying, can you please send me the recording? So yes, all of this gets recorded, all of it goes into post-production, and all of it then gets dropped into our YouTube channel. So I'll make sure I send out a copy as well. So you've got the ability to go back and say, right, what are the key things that I need to have as a part of that framework? So I'll make sure I get that to everybody as well. Just a quick one. I released, I think yesterday, I forget myself, I'm doing a bonus little Empire Masterclass show. Keeping the theme of what we've been doing every year. If anyone that knows me, I'm a pretty big one on mental health and a mental health advocate. So I've got a fantastic show that I'm doing. It's a bit of a bonus one on May 4. Thursday, May 4, 12 p.m. Eastern Australian time. I've got the CEO from the Push-Up Challenge joining me. So Nick Hudson, I'm not quite sure if any of you guys have been involved in the Push-Up Challenge. I've done it for the last 3 years. Been amazing for my own mental health space, but more importantly to make me aware of what's going on. And it's all about the suicide rates. So again, we'll be pushing out 3,144 push-ups in 24 days this year. So it's a lot of push-ups every day, but it's significant. That number is all about the amount of suicides, which is nuts. And they're the ones that are recorded as a suicide. So I'm sure that number could be a lot higher. So I've got Nick Hudson from the Push-Up Challenge, and I've also got Rochelle Rich from Emotions.org. So again, she's running a fantastic organization about talking about your emotions, and it's okay to share and feel that vulnerability. So we're going to be talking about all the mental health and well-being in the workplace. So if you can join us, please do so. Go to my LinkedIn page and you'll see some sort of registration stuff there to join us. Otherwise, Jamie, thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it. Look forward to coming up to Northern New South Wales next time for a beer and hanging out.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, mate.